you have to back out of it and bring in the other ones. Okay? Does this make sense? Question, please.
Not about this, but we said field-dependent people need more structures. But from my point of view, field-independent people need more structure because they can't see the big picture. So they need, for their improvement, to help their improvement, they need the structures.
No, if I said, that's right, you're right. If I said it the other way, I was wrong. Yeah.
No, you said it.
Yeah, you're quite correct.
Okay, then I got it wrong. Yeah.
No, you actually got it right. It's just, but it was the same as
No,
what I said.
I think you said the same.
We both said the same thing.
Yeah.
That's okay. No, but I'm glad you clarified. It's because it's useful to clarify. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I thought, well, I was kind of hoping I didn't say that. I didn't. Okay, that's good. But anyway, good question. Anything else? Yes. Well, okay, can I go back here and then come back to you? Because she hasn't talked to me a while.
What about
Yes.
if you have a big class, like 50 to 54? How will you be able to...
Yeah.
Yes, you know?
The bigger the class, the more challenging it is. And what you do is you do some of, like, what I try to do in here, and I know that I don't always succeed. I'm very sensitive to the fact that I don't always succeed in this. But what I try to do in here is I try to use what I'm explaining to illustrate. So in this case, okay, and I'm sorry, what's your name again? Evangeline. I hope you guys don't mind me doing that, because with this many people, I feel I want to get the names, but I feel kind of bad that I haven't. So sometimes I'm just going to ask you what your name is, and I hope I don't upset anybody. Okay? If anybody's George W. Bush, they might be upset with me already. I don't think he's here. But Evangeline, well, okay, go back through it again, please.
Yeah, what about if you have a
big class?
Yeah, like in a government school.
Okay, what you have to do sometimes is you have to bring in the other modalities as an extra assignment or as an activity that they do as an aside in the class. So in other words, you can't do it all. Right? So like, example with this class, like I said, I try to do what I'm asking you to do. I have to admit that we're not doing much kinesthetic in here. In fact, I would like to be doing more than we are. But you're doing reflections on the block. And that is all three, but that's primary kinesthetic. Right? Because you're typing and you're involved, you're moving your hands around and so on. So I would say, so there's a kinesthetic activity. It's actually, I got to be honest with you, it's not as much as you'd like to do. And you're doing, sometimes I have you turn and talk to each other. Right? And also, some of you are bringing in your computers. So there's kinesthetic in there. But in a class of 37 students, when I've got to deliver a fair amount of material every night, it's very difficult. And I'm sensitive to that. Okay? So what you have to do is you have to bring in the assignments to get it sometimes. But you can also be sensitive to what the students are doing. If we go back to Gaye's example with the student with the pencil that's doodling, right? Right? When we talked about that, just by not, if that student is doing it, and I agree with what Gaye said, make sure you check. But if you see a student doing that, and 7, 8 times out of 10, when you ask them a question, they can answer, guess what? They're doing that to help them learn. You can, by not disciplining them for that. Do you see what I'm saying? This is an act of omission. Omitting to do something. Not stopping them. You're actually helping them. You're actually giving them a kinesthetic channel. So sometimes you might be right. You might not get a lot of chances. And same thing with me. By not, and there's professors that tell students not to bring computers. Right? I don't do that. And I don't tell students to put them away or not to use them. Why? Because I know you guys are older, you're responsible, you're all here to learn. I doubt that you're playing with your computers. If one person is, so what? It's not the end of the world. But the point is that most of you, that's helping you learn. So I might not be doing much kinesthetic, but you're doing it yourself. And by not stopping you, by omitting, do you see what I'm saying? By not stopping you, I'm actually helping you learn, those of you who are doing that. See what I'm saying? So sometimes you can not do something, which helps students. So this material, I know this is kind of a long answer to your question eventually, this material will, being sensitive to it, will often stop you from doing something that you were about to do, right, that might have hurt a student. And that's often part of it. Or you know, you can encourage. I've had students that they have to have something in their hand. You know, here I am with the chalk as I say that, right? And I'm kind of doing that. So, but I've had students, one student, he could not sit down. And I had a principal that loved everybody sitting in the room, quietly, and focused on the teacher. And this kid couldn't sit, he couldn't sit. But he was a smart kid, and he was doing his work. You know, but he had to, he was walking, walk around, and all this. And he would disrupt other students because he was walking. So I finally said to him, I said, you know what? We made a two-part deal. One was to help him learn, and the second was not to get me in trouble with the principal. And this is how our little deal worked. I said, here's what you're going to do. I said, you have a zone. And I took his desk, and I said, okay, here's what you have. And I said, the width of your body, and 2 inches, one on each side, you can walk in that zone. So he took it, I said, he's standing like this is his desk, and I go, okay, so this is your zone right here. You can walk around. I said, I'll be flexible if you're a couple of inches outside, I'm not going to worry about it. But you can't go over to, what's your name, sorry? Knee? You can't go over to knee, that's out of your zone, okay? You can't do that, right? Or you can't go over to pre, right? You can't go over to down. You got your desk, and this is your zone. And you can walk, and it's yours. You can have that. You can walk around, okay? You can move your hands, okay? And you know what? The kid learned. He learned. And he was fine. And everybody knew that was his zone, and he was okay. Right? Now, in actual fact, what kind of learner was he? Kinesthetic, baby, all the way, right? And you know what? I didn't do too many other interventions for him. I didn't go and build models for him. I mean, every now and then I would. I didn't, you know, give him manipulatives. I did sometimes, but a lot of times I didn't. And that was enough. Just that. That was enough. Right? Okay? And then the second part of the deal, of course, you got to be sensitive to your principal. Everybody must be sitting like that. So I said, look, I said, you have to understand. What do you mean? I work here, you know, and I need to get money so I can do things like buy food. You know, I was single at the time, and I'm like, you know, I'd like to date the odd woman because, you know, maybe someday I want to get married. So, you know, I kind of need money to do that. So, you know, I have to have a job. And so I have to keep this guy called the principal. I have to keep him happy. And so I said, here's our deal. So what's going to happen is this. When the principal comes in, and I said, if I see him coming in, or if somebody else sees him first, they tell me, I said, I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to pretend I just noticed. And pretend you just got onto your desk. And I'm going to say, you get back in your desk. You know that's not acceptable. And I said, and you're going to smile at me and go, I'm sorry, and you're going to sit in your desk.
How old was
I said,
How old?
5th grader, maybe 10, maybe 11. I said, and then when the principal leaves, you get back up and you got your zone again. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, man, dude, he thinks this is cool. Give me 5, he punched this. He thought that was the coolest thing in the world, right? But the kid learned. And that's what you're at, that's what it's all about. That's what you're trying to do, right? So you make those adjustments. So, you know, Evangelina, you're right. You can't always do it yourself. But you can let the kids do it. You can let them find ways to do it. And they can find imaginative ways to do things that will help them. Okay? Okay, let's go through some of the ideas that they have here I want to talk about. Okay, they talked about there's all kinds of different tests and testing, but let's sort of leave some of that because I don't think too many of you here are looking at going into diagnostics. You may get involved in the testing if you get asked to do it, but mostly the way I look at testing is, I wouldn't try to learn an awful lot of stuff up front, is that if you're asked to do it at some point, then you can go ahead and learn. Usually you'll be given an opportunity. Even as a special educator, I don't get that involved in testing. You know, and that's something, it's very important in the special education world. But I'm the same way. I mean, I don't try, I mean, I'll go to a seminar sometimes and listen to my colleagues and try to get some new ideas about some of the assessments that are out there, because it's useful knowledge, but I don't get into details until somebody says to me, okay, Andy, you got to give this test next week. I'll say, okay, I'll figure out how to do it then. And I'll go and I'll read or ask somebody that's done it. And I recommend that in order not to pollute your brain with too much information that's just going to be information